Welcome to the official podcast of FOR ETERNIA.com. We have the power. I'm your host, AJ, aka Voodoo Magic, aka Zor. And today's episode is titled A Fellowship Formed. A line spoken by Skeletor in Masters of the Universe Revelation episode Cleaved in Twain that perhaps best encapsulates the two guests we have here today. Because thanks to these very amazing directors, we not only have two new animated seasons of our favorite heroic and evil warriors to watch 40 plus years since the property was originally invented, but we also have, without the doubt, the finest, most spectacularly directed 7 hours of Masters of the Universe content to date. Yes, they are Motu's Martin Scorsese and James Cameron, directors of Masters of the Universe Revelation and Revolution, Adam Conarroe and Patrick Stannard. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
That's a hell of an intro. Goddamn.
And it's true. I mean, we'll get to that, but I'm just so excited to have you guys on. But first, I must just genuinely compliment on Adam rocking that amazing vintage, like handlebar mustache.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was an experiment that was born partially out of the pandemic when everybody was experimenting with facial hair. But now it's just part of the brand.
I loved it. Actually, have you guys seen I don't know if you've seen the Masterverse figures that aren't Revelation or Revolution, but there was a actually I have it here. There was a new Eternia Man-at-Arms figure that has this, like, I'm completely enamored with him. You know, and he has this like old-timey classic feel, and he's also sporting what kind of looks like to be like this handlebar mustache.
Yeah,
you know,
it looks like a version you would see as like a 60s or 70s like fantasy artwork. Like a cover of a book or something.
It's really so well done. You know, and so speaking of figures, guys, I mean, have either of you gone down that action figure rabbit hole? Maybe not as bad as I have, but, you know, considering the nature of your work, have either of you like collected some Revelation or Revolution Masterverse figures?
I mean, yeah, we've got quite a few behind me here. Of course, we've got a lot of the ones from our show, but we do have some vintage style He-Man and Skeletors. I think this one is a... Oh, this isn't Terror Claws. This is... What is this one? Is this Terror Claws? You can tell me.
I think so.
He's got the bat on his chest.
Yes.
Okay, he just doesn't have the Terror Claws with him. But he's got the chest. So we've got quite a few. I was surprised when our show came out at how reasonably priced those figures were when they came out. For something that was like, it's like a 6-inch figure, and I think when they came out it was like what, $20?
Yeah, I think when you're talking about the Masterverse figures.
Yeah.
So when they launched that line and was all like that first wave was Masters of the Universe Revelation figures, I think the actual price was $19.99. It was June 2021. And they had the Battle Cat, they had the He-Man, and I was so shocked that they actually...
I love this boy.
Yeah, exactly.
This is one of our, like, in terms of like for me, like figures from our show, this is one of the ones I have the most pride in. The fact that, like, I mean, like, not pride for me, but like pride for like just like the range in general, because I think it's the first one where if you take the helmet off, it looks like Cringer.
Yes. Yeah.
He's also huge, which is like what Battle Cat should be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Battle Cat's also just one of my favorite characters in general. So seeing the toy for it was one of the first ones I acquired.
You know, I was so happy, and I know we're jumping ahead. That's okay. Well, I was so happy that that Battle Cat actually spoke this time around, because I know in Masters of the Universe Revelation he didn't speak, and it was being billed as that spiritual sequel to the classic series. And in the classic series, Battle Cat spoke, and I was like, oh no, he didn't say a word. But I was so excited that he did. Granted, it was only a line or two.
Yeah, but Stephen Root, he knocked it out of the park, didn't he?
Yeah,
it's like that classic like Superman Clark Kent, where it was all about, obviously it was just his voice, but like the body language that he kind of like put into his voice. Where Battlecat he's always kind of like, or Cringer's like, he's a little bit unsure. He's always kind of like second guessing himself. And when he tried the lines as Battlecat, he just did it with this confidence. And so without really needing to do any sort of like voice modulation or anything, like he just nailed Battlecat's voice. And super impressive.
Did you guys at all, well, if we finish up with the figures, did you guys splurge at all at the big Mondo Skeletor, the 6 scale?
Oh God, I wish.
I think producer Ted Biaselli has it in his office.
Of course.
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, so
amazing.
Yeah. It's so good
envious.
looking.
Look at I love that they did like the cell shading on it too.
Yeah, you can even see like in the hood that cell shading going on, and then on the cape, and it's so brilliantly done. And there's supposed to be another one coming. So in the Revolution, I'm not sure. I assume it's He-Man. Like, if you're going to do another one, right? Skeletor needs He-Man, but we'll see what it is. But they haven't announced it yet, other than announcing another one is coming. So I'm excited to see what it is. Did you guys get Motherboard? We have to.
Yeah, she's right here. We both have one.
Motherboard.
Oh, right behind you, Adam. I see it there too. All right, you know what? I really didn't pay attention to what's behind you guys. Okay, because you guys must feel prideful on that one, because you all had a hand in like creating a new character, right, for Masters of the Universe.
Oh yeah, like the design was based on a really talented. It was done by a really talented artist, Jung-Ha Kim, who just knocked it out of the park. And we got to unveil it last season, but we only saw it from the front. So a fun challenge this season is like, well, what does she look like from the back? How are we going to figure out what you doing with those wings all the time?
Oh yeah.
So pretty early on, we realized like, let's have those wings collapse, so they're not always on camera.
I think I wonder if it might be mentioned in the art book, but like when we were first designing Motherboard, I think like words that we were throwing around was things like giant demon goddess Lady Gaga, like with a techno player. And yeah, Jung-Ha just took that, and I mean, you can take a look in the art book and you'll see some of the other designs that Jung-Ha did, and every one of them is so just outlandish and bigger than life and so fun to look at. It was hard to land on one design for Motherboard.
And they really did a nice job executing that figure. I mean,
the wings articulate. Oh, it's so good.
And the backdrop that comes with it is
the fact the box closes and it makes the giant Screech statue is so good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, usually there's a lot of collectors that save the packaging, but this was really worth it. I mean, this sort of became, the diorama, and it was Screech, right? That opens up to become Motherboard, and it was so well done. And for such a low price point, I think it was $65 US.
Yeah.
And incredible price point. So yeah, I just love that figure. All right. So I am excited to have you both on, because Adam and Patrick are really the unsung heroes of Masters of the Universe Revelation and Revolution. In that promotional limelight so far, we only had the show's terrific executive producers, Kevin Smith, Ted Biaselli, and Rob David. And Kevin calls them the 3 Towers of Preternia. Now we know there were 4, but the 3 Towers. But you both, perhaps we should be calling you the 2 halves of the Power Sword, because you both directed all 15 episodes. I mean, all 10 for Masters of the Universe Revelation, all 5 for Masters of the Universe Revolution. Yet, with that impressive resume, it still feels like both of you have remained, behind the curtain, so to speak. So
to that point, there's an additional episode director to keep in mind called Abby Bullock. And Abby did an amazing job on episodes 2 and 4 of Revolution.
Okay.
Yes. So like while we were kind of like the two series directors for Revolution, Abby came in to help us with the even numbered episodes as an episode director.
Okay, great. Well,
yeah, your analogy about the Patrick and I being the two halves of the power sword may be apt, but keeping with that analogy, the real champions, the real spark comes from like the team of talented artists that we're working with that are really bringing their A game and the magic to the show, or in the case of Revolution, magic and technology.
Well, so regarding that limelight, I mean, is it something that you both normally prefer to stay out of the spotlight, or is this just how it usually goes with these type of productions? That
I mean, like, this is more a personal preference than anything else, but I'm not huge and very active on social media. Like, I am happiest when I am working on a show. Like, the act of directing is very rewarding, and so it's great that people love the show. It makes it so worthwhile. But even if people didn't like the show, we had a lot of fun making it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like I consider myself a craftsman. And so my first and foremost passion and interest is going to be the creation of something. And as long as there's eyeballs on the final product, like I'm happy about that. And with like my own name being out there, like I'm sure anybody who has grown up with the internet knows that there's good things and there's not good things about having your name out there. And so I like to I don't mind it. I don't seek, I suppose, all the limelight, as it were.
Yeah, I can see your point. Especially it got a little heated for Kevin the first time around, and maybe we'll get into that in a little bit. But all right, so then in the topic of promotion, and you guys then sort of being behind the scenes, were you both still involved with creating those epic trailers for Masters of the Universe Revelation and Revolution?
No, we weren't actively involved in any of the marketing efforts,
Okay.
although we were very big fans of what they produced. Like all three trailers for the three parts have been, phenomenal. But this most recent one for Revolution, the Karate Kid, soundtrack in there, like that was just chef's kiss, perfect.
Yeah, do you know who like selects that? I mean, we had Bonnie Tyler's Holding Out for a Hero the first time around, and then You're the Best, right, from Joey Esposito, which was just fantastic. You're right, chef's kiss. So if it's not you guys, do you know who's making those magnificent selections?
Some wonderful person above us, I'm sure.
Someone over at Netflix, I imagine. I don't know.
Someone's doing the good work.
So it's not coming over at Powerhouse then. It's being done at Netflix.
Powerhouse did not create those trailers, no.
Okay, I see. See, I always just assumed that was like part of the package, and understand that I'm not in this industry, so this is just I'm clueless. But I always thought like, maybe when you order a show and you trailers come with it, like okay, you get the show and you get 2 trailers and something like that. But I guess that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm it's not unheard of. So it's like it's not like something that can never happen. But in terms of like any show getting a trailer, like depends on what contract you sign.
Okay. So Masters of the Universe Revolution is streaming on Netflix right now, and I know you both lived and breathed the show all through production for a couple of years, and you probably know every minute of it by heart. But does the people at Powerhouse do anything to celebrate its release? Like, is there some sort of premiere party, or do you head over to like Executive Ted Biaselli's house and have a watch party? I mean, does anything like that happen?
On the first season, Teddy was kind enough to invite us to a little cast wrap party at his place, where we got to see his like incredible toy chamber.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you look like you're doing pretty good. You might be rivaling him.
No. I bow down to Teddy. He plans on opening a toy store one day when he retires.
Oh yeah.
Or Toy Museum.
I'd buy the
Toy
ticket.
Museum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not Toy Store, Toy Museum, and it's just no, he puts me to shame. But so you went to that watch party? That was cool.
So that was really great. And then I think for this most recent season, we did a Powerhouse cast or a crew screening on the big screen at a local theater, which is the best way to watch the show, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
there's no wrong way to watch it.
They really like
But on the
ramped
big
up the
screen,
speakers. We had like a
great.
little gray skull. What are they called? Those like panels that you can make.
Oh, just like the backdrops.
Backdrop, yeah. So we had like a gray skull backdrop. People could get in front of it, take pictures. That was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? And Masters of the Universe Revolution is that perfect like movie length to have that in a theater. You know?
Yeah. Like Powerhouse does something similar for when any of the other shows are being released, but usually they have to only show the first few episodes because you can only sit in the theater for so long. But ours was so easily digestible, and it really just was like watching a movie.
That must have been so fun. Does that take place down in Texas?
Yeah, we did it in Austin.
Does anyone end up? You can tell me. Does anyone end up dressing up like He-Man or Skeletor? Anyone cosplay from Powerhouse? Really get into it?
Do we have any cosplayers this time around?
I don't think there were any the second time around.
I think we had the usual.
But I know there were definitely some Halloween costumes along the way.
Yeah, definitely a couple of those. And I know that like we're all kind of mainly wearing the usual industry fare of like blazer with like a t-shirt and jeans.
Did you guys end up picking up? We didn't have it. We didn't have a lot of merchandise with Masters of the Universe Revolution, but there was a lot of merchandise with Revelations. Did you end up picking up those jackets? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I don't think I got the jackets. No, I kind of kept it to toys myself.
Okay. Yeah, I got a couple of them there. Actually, there was so much merchandise back then. Like there was cereal. I don't know if you guys.
Oh yeah. We up here we actually had them framed. The got the cardboard boxes flattened and framed.
Eternian Crunch, right? And then I forget what Skelegod.
Skelegod Crunch. Yeah.
I have them. I have the same boxes, but I have them with the cereal inside, and they're wrapped in plastic. Oh. And I'm just hoping.
Did you get the little toys as well? I've got like the tiniest little battle cat in a box up there.
Well, I never opened them, so I don't know. What's inside.
I'll give you a preview.
Okay.
So his little helmet came off. But anyways, if I put real close.
Oh, look at that.
It's like the world's smallest battle cat.
That is
battle
awesome.
kitten, I guess.
Battle kitten. So, all right. So everyone involved with Masters of the Universe Revolution, or in making Masters of the Universe Revolution, have they been overall ecstatic, I think, with the reception? Because like before, critics really seem to love Masters of the Universe Revolution, just like they loved Revelation. But now it seems a larger side of the audience really seems to love this second entry. And I mean, I really loved Masters of the Universe Revelation, underlined loved. I mean, I passionately adored it. I still think, to be honest with you, it's my favorite out of the two series, to be honest. But the first series didn't seem to be everyone's cup of tea. But this time with Masters of the Universe Revolution, instead of a cup of tea, you all made iced tea. And it seems like everyone can't get enough of this iced tea. So are you just guys really pleased?
Yeah, it's definitely a great feeling. I mean, like I'm still a fan of the first season as well. Like I completely stand by the work. But seeing the response for the second time around was just, incredible.
People really like this time around, Kevin and the writing crew really leaned into the puns, and I think that was very much appreciated. It was like, I think that like the stakes are, there's some intense stakes this time around, but there's a little bit more of that Saturday morning cartoon kind of like go get him, you know, He-Man type of vibe that I think like people really gravitated to. Yeah.
Could you guys feel that? Like, oh, they're gonna love this one when you were working on it. I mean, did you get a sense? Sometimes you get a sense of that early on.
I think so. I think you know, making a second season of any animated show is always like a little bit easier than the first season, just because like you've done it before. Everyone kind of knows what show you're making, and so things kind of have a tendency to crystallize in a way that were harder to see at the beginning. But even the first season, you know, it was, you know, a different type of story. It had a little bit more of a slower build until eventually, you know, it ramps up in that last episode where all the toys are at Grayskull and having an epic battle. But in the second season, you know, we know all the characters. We know who our players are. We know how they got here. And so we could just live in that kind of Saturday morning spirit of the cartoon.
Yeah. All right, so maybe before we take a step further, maybe perhaps we can steal a quick moment and take a look back. Animation directors. I mean, how cool is that? It feels like you both are living the dream. So are you? I mean, is this pretty much what you both wanted to do as kids?
Weirdly, yes. I'm one of those weirdos who kind of knew exactly what they wanted to do, like at a young age. And
That's
so
not
like,
weird. That's lucky. That's
it
lucky.
was very, very lucky. But I just remember being a kid and like, I've always had like a complete fascination with cartoons, like just every type. You know, Saturday mornings were a sacred time for me. And when DVDs kind of first became a thing and behind the scenes featurettes were more easily accessible, this is still kind of early internet, pre-internet days.
Yeah.
But I would just devour all of these, you know, animated movies, behind the scenes content. And I just decided pretty early on, like, I want to do animation. So like, that's what I went to school for. And so to be able to direct something, especially an IP as cherished and beloved as this one, it's a dream come true.
Yeah. I don't know if I like wanted to be an animation director at the start. I definitely wanted to do something art related. I would say that like initially I was, you know, I grew up on Star Wars. I grew up on like a lot of 80s properties. And the first thing I think I wanted to do was to do concept art, do it for like something like a Star Wars movie. And then that eventually moved into like video games. I started going into like video game design, made a couple real cheap games that nobody's ever going to know about. And it was from there that I then got into animation, and then through animation, I got a job at Powerhouse, and then just through my exploration into different fields, I eventually ended up in storyboards. And by the time I was ready to direct, I had already started working on like doing my own music videos and doing like little side projects. And, you know, I just like, yeah, so I kind of found my way to directing as opposed to like immediately being like, I'm going to be a director from the start. I just kind of ended up here.
Is this where you want to be though? You know,
I like it.
Here? Okay.
There's a lot of benefits to directing. I mean, you have a creative say in projects of immense scale. But obviously, like, there's the other side of that is there's a lot of keeping people focused, making sure that you're communicating properly with a lot of different people to make sure that you know, achieve whatever the goal is of the project. There's a lot of spreadsheets.
Yeah, that's one thing I was not prepared for. Like, there's so many spreadsheets in animation. Yeah. Like 90% of animation is a spreadsheet. Like, every frame, there's 100 spreadsheets.
How many shots do you think are in an episode? Every one of those shots has got a background, probably has something animated in it, that has a character design, that has to be composited, has to be sent to outsource partners, comes back, quality check. Like, you have to keep track of all of that. So, you know, I'm sure there's accountants that could look at our spreadsheets and be nice.
I got to tell you though, what the industry must be jealous of you compared to like 40 years ago is, especially those Filmation guys, is you guys have those canvas workstations, right?
Yes, you have now. The Cintiqs.
Yeah. Monitors, man. Where for anyone at home, they get to draw like directly on these screens and animate with no paper in real time, you know, where you know, back in the day, you know, the animators would have to like flip papers back and forth, you know, to see the animation. But these guys can do them right on these. Like,
That's how I learned. I learned on paper initially.
You did? Oh
yeah, same. Like
do the rolling technique where you put a piece of paper between each finger, you kind of make a claw and you kind of roll them 1, 2, 3 like that.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of that page, and you just kind of go back, and that kind of lets you see like a few frames ahead and back, and lets you kind of study the motion of a character. And now, you know, we do it on a Cintiq monitor, which is the funny part about it is like it's all still hand drawn. It's just drawn on a screen. You know, so like a lot of the process. So like when you used to do paper, one of the processes you'd have to go through is if you wanted to see how your animation played out, you'd have to take it to this thing called a down shooter. It's basically a camera that faced down on a table that would have a light on it. You place a page, get a couple frames, put another piece of paper, a couple more frames, and you would do that for like, you know, an hour or so, depending on how long your scene is. And then you could hit play and see it. And now with, you know, the advent of digital technology, like you can just hit the enter button on your keyboard at any time and see how your animation's playing out.
Yeah, there's definitely some quality of life improvements.
Yes. Yeah. And I gotta think, I once saw you guys, or I think it was you guys. Well, the way you do backgrounds, where you do like the 3D modeling of like a whole city, for instance, right? And then you just pick the angle you want, and then like take a snapshot. And correct me if I'm wrong. And then you guys just paint over. You know, there's no longer doing. Back in the day, I'm an amateur artist, and I would have to do that like horizontal line for
2-point perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it'd be such a struggle to get it right. But now with your technology, I mean, your backgrounds, I mean, it must save so much time.
Yeah, like our background pipeline was largely engineered by Jesse Piles, who's our background supervisor in the first season of Mo2. And it just really enabled us to do more backgrounds more quickly, more effectively, more efficiently. And we were able to kind of just put a little bit more love into every single shot. And so small little ways that we were able to get more quality by getting rid of, you know, small inefficiencies. Like it's great.
I'm surprised that like someone like I'm very excited that like you are speaking about it, because like backgrounds are one of those things where like if it's done really well, most people don't highlight it, you know. Usually only if the background is done poorly do people are like, oh, that looks bad. And so the fact that like you were able to notice that like the process is working to the benefit of Mo2, because I think that Mo2 Revelation and Revolution have some of the best backgrounds of like any show. Like they're so pretty, and they're so consistently pretty. That's the big thing.
If you want to look at my wallpapers, they're rotating block, you know, and I hope, are you guys going to do this for Masters in the Universe Revolution? When Revelation came out, you guys eventually released that on your social media accounts, you know, many of the backgrounds you used, and I was like, save, you know, and they're so beautiful to look at. And yeah, so I was interested, and I was checking out the process, and I was like, wow, you know, I was hoping that these were like time-saving techniques. You guys are familiar with Filmation, right? They would use the that stock method technique where, you know, they would have stock animation and keep plugging it in to save money, to keep jobs from going overseas. And I always thought like, oh, this is like a great you know, time saving technique, you know, to use this like 3D technology, so you're not working out your, you know, your proportion and your perspective lines and stuff, and then you could just sort of paint on top of this grid. And but it's really wonderful how technology is making your guys' lives easier without replacing you, because I'm so afraid of artificial intelligence. So frightened. Maybe you guys can calm me down, but I'm afraid one day they're not going to have real artists, and it's just going to be, you know. Do you guys worry about that at all?
You should be very afraid and hyper vigilant and speak out against it as much as you can. It's a very real concern in the industry these days, you know, and just because it's such an emergent technology, you know, ethical guidelines and legal guidelines have not really been developed to handle it. And so that is at least one of the reasons why things are a little tumultuous in the industry these days.
Yeah, the whenever we have yet to have the real conversations about like Akon said, like legally, what does this mean? What will the labor response be? What is the political response going to be to this? Like those conversations aren't really being had yet. And so, yeah, we'll see. Because like I have opinions about AI art, but I think like the main thing is like how it works. I think right now is pretty flawed in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, it needs input, and if it can't get that input, it doesn't really have anything to work off of.
Right. I think right now it just samples everyone else's artwork and sort of forms their
It's like
own...
a collage machine, basically.
Yeah. But I'm afraid one day it won't need that, I always worry about, even in our local supermarkets, right? I mean, I used to have just the cash registers alone. I mean, we used to have like jobs, 10 or 12 jobs, cash registers line up. And now, at least at my supermarket, not only is there only like 2 live people and the rest are just automated machines, even the big grocery lines where you have a lot of groceries, that's even automated. But we even have a robot, guys, in our grocery store that walks around. And they gave it a little name tag. I think it's Marty the robot or something like that, and has a little camera. And I don't know what it's for, security or maybe to see if there's messes. But I'm like, holy cow!
Like for me, it's like it's not like working a cash register or stocking shelves is a fulfilling employment, right? Or job to have. But at the same time, it's like if those jobs are going to go to some form of automation, it's like those people that like the thing that they got out of that was like a living, and that's what people need, right? If you could make a living and not have to stock shelves, I'm sure most people would go for that option. So like I think let's try to find a way to make that a reality, where we can all make a living without having to stock shelves or clean toilets or do any like that kind of stuff.
I think, I'm so not the person to speculate, but I think there's going to have to be some sort of universal living wage one day that, because there's going to be so many of those jobs just, replaced by technology that, I don't know.
I mean, if I'd say that like now that'd be a question for candidate Andra. Now that the monarchy has been dissolved.
Yes. Now, were you guys worried about that? Because, that was the one thing that seemed to step out of lore where no one has gone before, right? To quote Star Trek, that everyone has always been familiar with King He-Man, and the fact that it was no longer a monarchy. But now I thought it was great. I thought it was so fitting for the story, considering what one king can do, i.e. Keldor, right? A very bad king. But were you guys, I mean, I know were you guys like nervous at all? If you're going to be nervous about anything about, the reception, was that an aspect?
I mean, like nervous probably isn't the right word, but I was curious to see the fan reaction to that because it is such a departure. But I feel like it really does speak towards like, what the heart of Adam's story is kind of forging his own destiny. That's kind of what Randor, says to him. And so it falls in line with that. And I believe Marlena when she says that Randor would be proud.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And, one more step back and then we'll just keep plowing through regarding this technological advances. The one thing I miss, guys, film cells. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, or those animation cells, I get it. It's a heck of a lot easier to paint these models on a screen with a touch of a stylus versus, like an actual paintbrush.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for it to dry. That's for sure.
Yeah. But boy, as a collector, there's something I miss,
Do you have some filmation cells?
Yeah, I do. I have, I not only have some filmation cells from a couple episodes, including my favorite episode called The Evil Seed, but I don't know if you guys were familiar. There was a original Filmation commercial that Filmation did prior to the 1983 series, it was a toy commercial, and it was just beautiful animation. And I have one of the cells from
Oh man,
that commercial. Yeah, and I would love to come out and go, I need a hand-drawn cell from Masters of the Universe, Revelation and Revolution. And there's no such thing. Actually, there was someone on eBay who created one that
the people will do that. I've seen, like, I know it's something like Disney does sometimes, is that they'll have people who actually create cells of some of their other movies and then sell those.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're like, there is something about like looking at like an animated film and being like, I have a piece of that in my living room. Like that's a so those you have like you have one from the toy commercial and you have a couple from the actual show.
Yeah, the actual 1983 series. I have a few like from this episode called Evil Seed, where this plant creature took over Eternia, and and they're beautiful. And
is that creature pink?
No, he's green.
He's green. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a cell of a different one then. There's that one I gave Shane. I can't remember what it is, but it's He-Man, and he's like riding a giant tentacle monster.
Like here's He-Man wrapped up by
that's a great one.
Plant. Oh, yeah. And
wow. Excellent.
Yeah.
That's classic.
I gotta frame these. But Evil Seed was this great, terrific plant creature. There we go. This is a figure of him.
Okay. I remember that. Okay.
Yeah. And Skeletor would call him like a cabbage, What does that cabbage want to do? And it was one of those great episodes that it was, like Masters of the Universe Revelation, where Skeletor and He-Man had to team up against a common foe, a common threat, and he was taking over Eternia, and it's a great episode. It's actually we had this large top 10 vote for the best top 10 episodes of that 1983 classic series, and I think this one was number 2, Evil Seed. So fans really love it. So all right, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but Masters of the Universe Revelation was your first animated series directing gig for both of you. For animated series?
That was the first time we were both in the full director's seats.
Yeah, right.
We had both worked on Seis Manos previously, and before that, I think we both had worked on Castlevania. And so, like, we were very familiar, especially with the Powerhouse process. And we dabbled in a few series works, but this is our first time actually stepping and sitting in the director's chair.
So did you guys have to lobby hard? I mean, how did you get the job, or did you have to prove your mettle in some way or another? Or
well, Patrick and I have been at Powerhouse for a good long while now, and so we've shown more than a few times that we can make some stellar animation and make it quickly and on a budget when needed. And so there was like a lot of trust that Powerhouse had placed in us, just as artists and individuals. But we were very thankful when they gave us the position to direct this show. Me especially, like, one of my favorite things to work on is things with really excellent lighting and mood and color and atmosphere. And this is definitely a property that has all of those things. Delving into the show, one of the things that fans will say that what drew them to the series is the box art, like how vibrant it is with these colors, with this Frank Frazetta inspired illustrations. And that was definitely one of the things that I latched onto pretty early on. And what we wanted to bring to the show was this super saturated, vibrant world, that's different from our own, with these larger than life characters. And then Patrick has been a phenomenal animator for forever, it seems. Like, there's nothing that you can throw at Patrick Stannard that he can't do. Sometimes things more complicated than he should even attempt. Like when in the first season, when Savage He-Man is just destroying all of those incidentals, they're just dogpiling on him.
Yeah, that shot.
Patrick, you're crazy to attempt a shot like that.
I did that in storyboards too. That was So you know the scene. It's basically it's that one where the camera's kind of slowly rotating around He-Man as like they're all piling on top of him, and he keeps knocking them off
before he gets the axe.
But just before he gets the axe. That was all done in storyboard as a storyboard, but every panel was only like 3 frames long, so it was basically animated in Storyboard Pro.
It was such a fun shot too. And then once he gets the axe, you know what? I want to talk about him, but maybe I should wait a second. All right, so you guys get this gig. Are either of you Motu fans at this point, prior to as like kids or anything like that? Or
so I was born in the late '80s, and so like I kind of missed that initial He-Man hysteria. But like my connection to the franchise was always through the Filmation series. Like just being a fan of animation in general, like I'd already become acquainted with it. But there's this fun little thing about directing is the more comfortable you get at it, the more you really come to appreciate how important it is to work a budget. And the Filmation series is like a masterclass in like how to work a budget, how to get the most amount of animation for your buck. And so there's a lot of notes we took, but also there's just like a ton of charm that series has.
Like as someone who like similarly I was born in '87. But I grew up on a lot of like 80s properties. Like I saw RoboCop, definitely far too young for someone to watch RoboCop. But
wasn't there a RoboCop cartoon? I think
yes, there was. We don't talk about the RoboCop cartoon.
All right.
There's a TV series too.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
But yeah, so like grew up with like RoboCop, Star Wars, Aliens, like all these. Like I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. So I was already like a big fan of all these fantasy genres, big fan of all these sci-fi genres, and He-Man was always kind of like in my periphery, kind of growing up. And so I wasn't anticipating falling in love with it as much as I did when we got the gig. Because like it was a constant. It's kind of like my career. It was like a constant reveal to me. I was like, oh shit, like He-Man's got this, and they have this lore about the sword, and like, oh, but then there's this different version. There's this thing called the Hall of Wisdom, and like, oh my god, like, and just like going down this rabbit hole, going through. I have it behind me here, going through the art of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. You can still see all of our notes in here. Just and speaking of like you can go to any page here, and it's just like lore and vibrancy and the idea that like I can work in a fantasy world but then also get to do cool mechs and work on things that like transform and come apart and have lasers while also someone's using magic to transform someone into stone and like doing I don't know, it was like that was my thing, was like less like an old love and more like falling in love with a property.
It's so crazy, right? It shouldn't work. I mean, here's this guy in a loincloth flying in a spaceship, and he's got a sword and a shield. It is marvelous, but and it's great that you discovered along the way about it, because I think a lot of people don't realize at first, point blank, they think He-Man and Skeletor, how robust the world, the universe is. Yeah. Permit me to fly off on a tangent for a second, but I didn't know the head of production over at Powerhouse, Shane Minshew.
Yes, sir.
Was such a fan. I mean, it wasn't until I saw him talk during Netflix's Geeked Week.
Oh yeah, that interview.
Yeah, where I got to see, his like Masters of the Universe tattoo sleeve, and he showed
like one of the Masters tattoos he has. He's got so many.
Really? Oh man, I really need to reach out to him and see if he would regale us with his Motu.
He's probably the one in here that would have a toy wall to rival. Like,
I got to reach out to. We follow each other on social media, on Instagram, but I got to reach out to Shane because
it's always like, his fashion sense is always on point, right? He's got like the Skeletor hat, and he'll have like the Masters Revolution shorts or Revelation shorts that he brought to like the premiere. He was kind of our guiding force when couldn't get immediate access to Teddy and Rob and Kevin, like, because they're very busy. They've got like crazy schedules. But so when we couldn't have them, Shane was kind of like, and Akon can speak a little bit on this. We have a chat called Gut Check, and it was literally like we would have an idea and we would be like, Shane, what do you think? Does this does this tickle the fancy of a Motu fan, or are we off base with this?
Yeah, having that instant feedback, was great. And it kind of really allowed Patrick and I to keep our focus on the franchise as it would be experienced by, newcomers. Because if something didn't make sense to us, it wouldn't make sense to the audience. And so we could ask the appropriate questions and make sure things are coming across on the screen how they're coming across on the page.
Mm-hmm. All right, so back on track. As a novice to the industry, I must ask, why 2 directors or sometimes 3? I know having multiple directors is a lot more common in animation, say, than obviously feature films. Mm-hmm. But and I'm certain there's important reasons behind it. So can you just explain?
I mean, are we even 2 directors at this point, Adam?
Yeah, Patrick and I speak about, during production, we would have daily meetings, catch ups at the end of the day, what have you, where it really did feel like we were just the 2 halves of one brain.
2 halves of the sword.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say, in general, animation is such a vast medium. It has so many different departments, each their own specific artistic, specialty. And so it's hard to find one person who can do it all. And even if you could, you wouldn't necessarily want to. And where Patrick and I really worked well together is that we're both extremely talented artists, but in different areas. And so we complemented each other's strengths and weaknesses really well. Patrick, as I mentioned, was a really excellent animator and board artist especially. And I kind of approached it from more of a post-production side. My background is largely in compositing, editing, etc., and VFX work, of which there was plenty.
There's plenty to go around.
Yeah.
I think that skill set was immensely valuable to Motu. Was Akon's skill set as a compositor, because to kind of speak as well, not just animation is vast, but the Motu universe is so vast and dense at the same time. There is a character for every scenario. There's aliens and worlds that all have their entire own backstories. There's the Filmation series, there's the comics, there's the classics, there's the vintage toys. There's so much to pull from that it kind of becomes a 2-man job in terms of making all of that have focus and make sense. And thankfully, we already had a really good script to work off of, courtesy of the powers that be, the 3 towers.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of the compliments that how we complemented each other, Akon's ability to know what things are going to look like when they reach his plate as a compositor, which is the end of the pipeline, was invaluable in terms of making sure we didn't go in 2 crazy directions, because that's kind of where it goes. It's my role was usually random ideas, oh, what if we did this? What if we did this? Wouldn't this be really cool? And then Akon would kind of take that and hone it in a direction.
Yeah.
So we had a really intense brainstorming sessions where, and I think that's work, because that's what Motu needs. Motu needs to do crazy things that you're not going to get in a more grounded or a more grim universe. But at the same time, if you're just doing that, then you're going to lose focus of the really important story and characters that you need to tell. And that's what holds you in a property like Motu. The toys and all of that is really fun, and that's the excitement part. That's what gets you interested. But what keeps you in the universe is the relationship between Adam and Tila,
right.
And the relationship between Skeletor and He-Man is that's so fun to play with. Or in Revolution, Skeletor and himself.
Yeah. So you guys really fit then a yin and a yang. I mean, that's probably a bad analogy. Do you know what I mean? But I to go for full circle to calling you guys are Martin Scorsese and James Cameron. Those great directors. The former happens to be a master craftsman at character interaction and dialogue, where the latter is a craftsman of action, right? James Cameron action, right? So,
Mhm.
so was there any of that to you guys at all? Do you feel like
There's
you
a
guys-
little bit, like,
Okay.
Pat's really amazing at all of these action sequences. And so a lot of the times the things that I really care about are like the character interactions and those kind of subtle, character performances throughout. And so a lot of times, like, that's where I wanted to put my focus. And I always felt comfortable doing so because I knew whatever action was needed, Pat was going to knock it out of the water.
Yeah, if you want to, like, I think if you look at, let's take like Revelation for example, like Evelyn talking with Orko and like finishing on like its magic with that like phoenix, like that is an Akon like idea, like realized. And then me, it's like He-Man running through a crap load of shadow beasts and then making a shadow dragon fall down and explode while he says "For Eternia." Like that's like the two halves.
That's awesome. By the way, should I be calling you Akon, not Adam?
Oh,
I mean, the story behind that nickname is that there's more than one Adam at the studio. And when I first started, is one of the directors of Castlevania, Adam Dietz. He and I like shared an office. Our chairs were like back to back, and so we had to quickly find a way to discern which Adam you were talking about. And now there's Prince Adam added to the mix, and so Akon is just easiest. You're not talking about the character, you're talking about the director.
It's kind of cool sounding too, if I'm being honest about that. You guys have such a good rapport. The one thing I'm wondering, so you got Adam, Akon, and Patrick working together, and to so many of us, working with a partner is such like a scary proposition. Because so many of us work at different speeds with like different methods and like carry opposing philosophies, at like the same task at hand. So yeah, and that's why the prevailing advice is don't work with your friends, right? Or your family, because all it takes is that one thing, that one disagreement to blow a partnership wide open. So how does Akon and Patrick navigate that traditional minefield of working together, especially in a job like with deadlines and assumingly high pressure situations?
I know the exact way to answer this. Is because we had years of practice in the form of we would normally do two 15-minute breaks, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, at Powerhouse. And the way that we would choose to spend that time is by playing Smash Bros at the office. And so we were able to deal with each other's rage and in small doses over the course of a decade. And so by the time it got to directing, it's like, there's nothing we could do to surprise the other person.
Yeah. And also like for Revelation, like you said, like our first time kind of directing, like I was looking forward to having someone to work with. Like it was a much more daunting task to go into that alone.
Yeah, agreed. There's not a day went by that I wasn't glad to have Pat there by my side.
If you ever did like a lightning bolt,
yes,
one of those.
The king of lightning bolts.
When you guys were, go ahead, and I'm sorry, Pat.
I was just going to say that there's a lot of lightning in the show that I like. I would just be like, all right, cool, and it's animated. There you go.
So when you guys were playing, is there a lot of smack talk? Playing your video games. Hey, you guys ever watch what is that 40-year-old version? Paul Rudd and I forget the other guy. They're just doing smack talk. I just have this vision of you guys doing that.
We kept things pretty cordial at Powerhouse.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
It's that.
I think our concept of heated is a lot like tamer than a lot of people.
we never threw a controller or anything.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So stop me if I'm wrong, but the executive producers do the casting, and they're the ones deciding who they want, which actors to be the voice talent. So starting with Masters of the Universe Revelation, did your minds absolutely explode when you first found out who this star-studded voice cast was going to be? And then did they explode again when you found out who was going to be added to the cast for Masters of the Universe Revolution?
Yeah, it's such an insane cast list, because I was at the beginning crossing my fingers that we might get like one big name attached to our show, but then to get like the laundry list of like top tier talents, reading the words in front of us and animating to those voices, like it was just insane.
They're not just like, and they're not just like star-studded cast. Like they're also, all of them are really good voice actors.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like as an animator, that's another thing. Like it's one thing to have like a star in the role, but like to have a star who also like understands the ins and outs of good voice acting is, yeah, it's we rolled a nat 20 on that one in terms of our luck.
Mhm.
You know who shocked me? Ted Biselli didn't shock me because as Quildo, or what I mean is I realize he's done a lot of voices. He did he was Loki on Superhero Squad.
Mhm.
So the fact that he's so talented as a voice actor, I wasn't surprised, But you know who shocked me? When you guys had writer Tim Sheridan. Dude,
Oh my god!
Oh yeah,
In
playing
Miro.
Miro. Yeah.
holy
He's
cow.
so good.
He is so good. I had no idea that was him. Sometimes you could tell, and I had no idea it was him. And then when I saw him in the credits, I was like, wow.
I mean, like Tim's such, a great guy, like in
Yeah.
general, but also like a fantastic writer. And it's just so unfair that he's also a great voice actor.
Yeah.
Like save some for the rest of us. Like if he starts animating something, I'm going to be like, look, we need to talk.
I had him on the podcast a few times, and Tim, I believe, did explain that he did start out in acting early in his career, and he did a few commercials, and I would love to find those commercials, something like a Tide commercial or something like that. But even though you could find most things on the internet, couldn't find that. But yeah, he was so fantastic. And then the other person I'm impressed with, maybe I shouldn't have been, but it's William Shatner. Wow. I mean, what was he? He had to be 90 when he was recording his audio.
And yeah.
And that man, he is just as sharp and as talented as he's ever been.
I was astonished when he came into the audio booth, and I was like, "This, like a 90-year-old man, he's got more energy than I do."
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way we all hope to be, right? When you look at like actors, say like or Betty White, God rest her soul, but anyone or Clint Eastwood, I think is directing in his 90s, that William Shatner is still so sharp and entertaining and funny and talented, and were you guys shocked to find out he was playing Keldor? I mean, did that even?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, like if there was any shock left over from like the initial casting, then Shatner's name comes on the mix, and then he's in front of us during the record, and it's just I'm all out of reaction. Like I don't know how to react to that. I never thought I would be in this scenario where I'm working with William Shatner.
Now that is awesome. I didn't know you guys could observe the cast recordings.
Yeah, we were usually there on the Zoom calls. Like it was, we had a wonderful voice director, Colette Sunderman, and Kevin was usually there as well, working with the talent. But every now and then, we'd pipe in. It's like, can they say it a little bit louder because they're on the other side of the room in the animatic?
We're bringing the context of the episode that we've like boarded. So it's like this moment, it's like out in a battlefield. So like talk as if you're in front of a helicopter, right? Like you got to kind of project, or like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments was it was an ADR pickup session where we're just kind of picking up additional lines, efforts, grunts, what have you, just to kind of help flesh out the soundscape in the episode. And it was picking up some lines for Keldor. And Colette passed the direction over to me to work with Shatner, just because I had the context, scene by scene, where the efforts were, where the added lines were, and it just turned into this very out of body experience where I was directing William Shatner, and we finished, and like my soul returned to my body. I'm like, did we get it? Did we get it? Like it was just like I was running on pure adrenaline.
Yeah, that man is a living legend. And I never would have thought Masters of the Universe. Both those guys, Mark Hamill and William Shatner. Holy cow! And this was what I think the first time they've ever been in a show together. I think
I think you're correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that they're in the head of the same character, it's just genius. That's the thing where I'm just so jealous of you guys. You get up, go to work, and you're like, yeah, this is what I'm working on. All right, so when the cast is doing their voice recordings, and that's after the scripts are written, obviously, and assumingly locked. Is that when your team is working on the animation models, or are you already into like animatics by then?
For sure. So in terms of like when we're recording the talent, is that when like our team is working on the animation or the previs? I would say that like it's a cascading thing. So like, yeah, like obviously like recording is like a pre-production thing, but like usually we go kind of like episode by episode. And so like it's like a waterfall type thing or overlapping, I should say. Where like we might be finishing up sending one episode out while we're on pre-production for another episode. So at some point they start to overlap.
Jeez.
But ideally, yeah, like you get all of your audio and then you package it as like a big animatic and send, and then that's what you give to your outsourced partner.
Yeah, but by and large, we had the audio recorded before we're really getting into the weeds of doing storyboards. There might be like a little bit of like a head start that's happening beforehand where we just have scratch audio in place. Okay. But, we really rely on, the talents and their performance, in those recordings to help bring out that character. Because, when we're posing and, performing the animated characters, we want it to align with the voice, the vocal performance.
Just an offshoot here. I just adore the artwork of Eddie Nunez.
Oh yeah. Wow. Eddie is one of the best. A fantastic guy to work with and just incredible designs. Like his designs have this very, I don't know how else to put it, but like an action figure type quality to them, where it's just like you just want to pull it off the page and play with it.
Yeah, he's like one of the main reasons that like He-Man is so big in our show, which was like that was the thing that we needed. Like He-Man, it's He-Man. Like you can't have a small Lilith He-Man. He's got to be gigantic. And you're not going to find someone better to do that than Eddie Nunez. He-Man's biceps are bigger than my waist.
He's so talented, and he has interesting line work as well. It's angular in certain sections, and it's just, I was just so happy that you had him doing that. And, but you know what? Let's go to that Savage He-Man. But in general speaking, I needed to cover Fighty Fight. So can we talk Fighty Fight?
Let's talk Fighty Fight.
Let's talk Fighty Fight. I believe it was Kevin Smith who first revealed that often his writing team, when they were writing the scripts, would not detail the step-by-step or rather blow-by-blow description of epic battles in their scripts, epic fights between characters, that instead their writing team would just jot down, or perhaps even be encouraged to jot down the note Fighty Fight, which I think was just a call of action to both of you, where, as directors, you would fill in the blanks and choreograph these amazing battle scenes. So can you explain soup to nuts the process of turning Fighty Fight into a epic clash that we see on screen?
Well, it usually starts with me and Pat with like action figures in hand. No, we usually we read the script, we kind of like digest it, we understand like what's happening under the hood, story wise, what are the key things that are happening throughout the fight and the choreography, and we're just making sure that those story beats are coming across, and doing so in a way that's really engaging and entertaining.
Yeah, I think that it's a wonderful excuse to play with storytelling in a different realm, and I love doing storytelling like in fights, with choreography, because like, you know, those are always the most interesting fights to watch. Whenever you watch, like, have a memorable fight scene in your head, it's always one that is telling you a story that you don't know that it's telling you. And so being able to play with characters, like, you know, figuring out like what is He-Man's moveset, right? Like He-Man, he's I always pictured him as kind of like a bull, like he kind of runs directly at the problem because he can take whatever you throw at him. So why not just like go directly? But at the same time, he pulls his punches. You know, He-Man doesn't, you know, except for a few key instances, he doesn't try to stab you with the sword, right, like someone like Blade might, right? Like Blade's always going to lead with the point of his blades because he's trying to kill you. Whereas He-Man, he's not. He's a hero. And it's like, but Skeletor, on the other hand, he's always like elusive. So he's always kind of attacking from other angles or doing something that you're not anticipating, right? So he'll launch a portal and stick his hand in the portal and punch you with that, or he'll make his fingers turn into metal, you know, and like shoot underneath the ground so they come up out of nowhere and surprise you. He's always kind of, rarely does he come at you directly. It's always like a diversion of some sort. And then also, yeah, like in these moments, what is the character feeling? What do they need to learn? What are we trying to communicate to the audience? Are we trying to communicate that like a really good fight for that is the Teela versus Spectral He-Man one? Yeah, where like when she's kind of evading the subject, she's evading He-Man, you know, and like the whole thing of like changing it into Teela as well and having Teela fight herself. It's, yeah, like I'm so happy that the powers that be gave us that creative freedom to really play in that space. And I think it yielded to some pretty fun results. I had a lot of fun doing working on multiple fight scenes for both Revelation and Revolution.
Yeah, it's also a great opportunity to play around with like the character's abilities, you know, like or in the case of, you know, at least what was it, 109, when Teela and Andra are going up against Webstore and Blade and all of them.
Oh yeah,
it's like, well, Webstore comes with a little grappling gun, so we got to work that in there somewhere. Those types of fun Easter eggs, figuring out, you know, what Skelegod's attacks, you know, or look like, you know, how does he fight, you know, they're all opportunities to reveal a little something about the characters. And I feel like we also have to kind of like gush over our really talented board artists.
Oh yes,
for a lot of these sequences. We had worked with a few of them on the first season for a few years. Patrick and I, as I mentioned before, we had worked on Seis Manos. A lot of the board artists, it's a kung fu show, so lots of intricate choreography in the show. And a lot of that same team kind of came over to the first season of Motu. And they just did phenomenal work. That's kind of part of why all of Teela's fights are so badass, especially in that 104 Scareglow fight, is because we had just come off fresh of this great kung fu show.
Yeah, and then shout out to the ones who came on for Revolution, which is like, I think ratcheted so much of it up to 11, especially that final episode. There's so much to keep track of. So yeah, that was we've been pretty lucky on the crews that we've been able to work with on these to help realize these very, very intense visions.
You know, I love that you go into the mindset of the characters, you know, in regards to, you know, their behaviors and how they would approach the fights, you know, not just the way they think, but the way they're feeling. And it's just something I never even considered right now until, you know, you just mentioned it. And
well, with Savage, you know, like that's that wonderful moment where you're like, He-Man's not holding back. It's like He-Man had that power in him when he was fighting Skeletor beforehand, but he doesn't let it out. And then when you have Savage, he doesn't have that restraint anymore. And so, yeah, it's like Skeletor is like, all right, I'm going to launch a nuclear energy bomb at you. And He-Man's like, I'm going to eat it. It's like, crap. You know, like, oh, God.
You know, mine, without a doubt, my favorite fight has to be that epic battle between Skelegod and Savage He-Man. And, you know, just the dynamic camera angles chosen reminded me like how direction of photography, if that's the right term in animation, is so important. You know, the way you angle it can make it look so dynamic. And some of those action beats, like when Savage He-Man lands a punch to Skelegod up against the rock, was it? And then a beat later, bam, the rock behind Skelegod shatters. Or how like just Savage He-Man punches Skelegod, sends him flying, but quickly grabs Skelegod by the ankle and yanks him right back in. I'm like, this is top notch. I mean, this would be amazing if it was like to make a comparison, an Incredible Hulk movie, and it was just so.
It was really I think a carryover from some of that Seis Manos influence.
Yeah.
Working on a kung fu show, because like if you compare like pre kung fu movie Western cinema, right? It's mostly fights like you'd see in like an old Western, right? It's John Wayne, and he grabs a guy by the lapels and he just punches him, and he falls back into a table, and the guy gets up and he walks over, and then he punches him and he falls back through a table. And there's like the tempo is very slow and kind of sedate. And what like a lot of kung fu cinema brought to fight scenes wasn't just like all the cool moves, but also there's a rhythm, and the rhythm will change tempo, or it'll get more sporadic, and kind of like the strikes get more staccato. And so like, having that like that was like a big thing on these fight scenes, where like they have kind of a rhythm, and there's a sound quality that like you can almost hear like with the different moves. And like, yeah, that's like He-Man, right? He-Man hits Skelegod with one big punch, throws him, and then is immediately on him. And it ends before Skelegod gets him off him. There's that moment where it's just a flurry of punches hitting the sword. And he's like, get this guy off of me. Like there's a rhythm to that. And then it ends with the boom. And then you get a moment to breathe. And then he goes into the fight again. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Danny who boarded that sequence, right?
Yes, I think it was Danny, and we had an additional board artist who's, unfortunately, I can't remember his last name, but his first name was Chris. It was Chris and Danny's work on that that like really gave us that Savage versus Skelegod fight.
Yeah, Danny Araya, another fantastic action board artist that we've been lucky to work with a few times.
Do you guys have a favorite?
Never fails to never fails to impress.
They're all impressive. I was going to say, do you guys have a favorite fighty fight? Personally, each of you?
I have a lot of love for the very opening fight sequence in Revolution, just against Scareglow. Partially just because I feel like it really kind of captured that Saturday morning spirit of the original Filmation show. He-Man's there, and he's kind of showing why everyone else struggled so much without him on the first season. It just kind of makes clean work of Scareglow. First season would have been a lot shorter if He-Man had been around the whole time.
Yep.
I would say for me, it's probably the Skeletech versus Hordak fight. Is pretty good. Just because like there's so many great transitions in that as well. Going back between like Skeletor's past and then his current fight with Hordak. A lot of that was done by Sean. Do you remember his last name? Was it Khan?
Yes.
Sean Khan was the board artist on that one. Yeah, that was like one of my favorite sequences. So good.
Yeah. And I love
just
that.
I'm thinking back about like just like the punctuating moment when Hordak hits him with the shield and it slows down, and then you get that lightning strike. And then it transitions back to like the modern day. Like it's so good.
Yeah, that reminded
transition.
That reminded me of the movie 300. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yeah.
Where there was a lot of that speed up and slow down of time. Yeah, and they would have the lighting was very similar with the lightning bolt, and it was just so visually stunning. It was so cool.
They beat the ever loving snot out of each other. So good.
They did. And you were talking about rhythm. So let's go on the flip side of that coin, maybe to Akon's side, because on the flip side of these like action-packed scenes, there are these involving immersive, emotional scenes of dialogue and character interaction. That is just so wonderfully done. A scenario comes to mind. the scenes that take place in the dungeon of Castle Grayskull, in the second part of Masters of the Universe Revelation, where Duncan is imprisoned with the Orlax and has these great long stretches of dialogue, first with Skelgod, and then the second time with Skell Sorceress, aka Sorceress Evelyn, where there are no scenery changes, and both scenes are held in this like dark, confined space. Yet the scenes are equally thrilling and compelling to their action counterparts, and sometimes can even be more satisfying in a way than these all-out brawls that neighbor these moments. So, as directors, does making these scenes present its own set of challenges to be effective? Because it always feels like you were saying about rhythm, that there's a dance to these scenes, like how long you determine to let a sentence breathe, or where the camera is positioned during said dialogue can make or break an emotional moment.
Yeah, like we really encouraged all the board artists to just really get as creative as they could with like where they're putting that camera, what angles they're choosing. That sequence you're referring to, I believe, was boarded by Olivia Sweet, if I recall correctly. Amazingly talented board artist and animator, but it's just did a fantastic job of choosing some of these shots. There's this one that I remember fondly. It's when Evelyn is kind of starting to doubt the choices that she's made, and before she ends up taking the power for herself. There's the shot where there's one of the hanging cages from the dungeon, and she's kind of framed through it because she's kind of in a cage of her own making. And I was like, chef's kiss. Great job, Olivia.
Yeah, but there is a rhythm to it. Like when do you want to hold on a close up of Evelyn? Yeah. And it's usually like Duncan has some pretty cutting words that he says that influences Evelyn. So like specifically like when she's like leaving, and he kind of leaves her with that. What's that line that he leaves her with? That final line. There's a lot of lines we went through, so we got to go back and see if we can remember it. But it's something about because he's trying to make a divide between Evelyn and Skeletor.
Right.
And so
it's like it's just like this pointed barb that kind of buttons.
Just when you want to recall something, it escapes me. If I was 20 years younger, maybe.
I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, but anyways, it's a nice shot, like holding on Evelyn before she then walks out of frame. Like stuff like that. Like that's just as important as the rhythm in like a fight scene, is because like you're communicating a moment in the story that like is part of a greater arc. And so every shot matters, and especially in a show like Motu, you have to be careful about shot count, because if you get too much, like there's a lot of stuff in every shot. There's Duncan is not just a dude. He's a dude who's got armor and sometimes cloth, and like there's usually like 3 or 4 other people in any given moment. Like there's a big cast of characters in our show, and so you have to be careful with shot count, meaning that like if you have less shot, you want to keep the pace up. Every shot matters so much in terms of what it's conveying to the audience, and like basically what resources it's using, and what bang for the buck you're getting out of that shot.
I just love, what this creativity you're talking about is subtle, right? It's really subtle creativity, but it's so impactful for people who are paying attention. I'm so impressed with your craft. One of the things that I'm so impressed with what you guys do, and maybe not necessarily everyone notices or everyone catches or everyone's paying attention, and I'm not talking about the Easter eggs, but I guess I should ask about those too. Is what I'm referring to is like those amazing transitions you do, like in Revelation when Triclops' eyes squint, and then it dissolves into that stained glass, like eye.
The match dissolve.
In the Temple of Globula. And then, or even better, the sparks from Robato's hammer dissolve beautifully into those fireflies.
Those are both Acon transitions you're talking about.
Are they?
Oh yeah.
I did pat myself on the back for the Spark one. That was something that was kind of added in like last minute. It's just like something about this. We need some sort of transition between these two scenes because they're just so tonally dissonant. And so we put together this little test animation of like the sparks turning into the fireflies, and we're like, oh, that's it. Problem solved.
It's another layer that some people just don't account for. You got visuals and story, but you're kind of like using your craft, your medium, to enhance the story in such a way that it just, well, for me at least, it just charges me emotionally even more, and it's hard for me to describe.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those benefits of working in animation is just it really allows you to take full advantage of the medium. Like there's nothing we can't do in animation.
And even in Masters of the Universe Revolution, even for Kings, that episode, where scenes, you guys kept dissolving from like Tila's face into Adam's face and vice versa. That like was subconsciously informing the viewer, that these two characters' hearts were connected, right? And so these are just brilliant touches of work. And are any of these? Is this all you guys? Is any of this in the script? I mean, obviously the fireflies weren't and stuff. I mean, or is this all just from your craft?
In those cases, I think those were little opportunities that we had to gild the lily. But it's so much of animation is kind of reacting, or filmmaking in general is just reacting to what you're seeing. At the beginning of production, the show is the outline, and then that's the show until the script comes along, and now that's the show. And that's the show until the animatics come along. It's like, okay, now that's the show until the animation comes back. It's like, now this is the show. And you're always kind of taking what you've done, you're moving forward a little bit at a time, but you're also kind of taking a step back to make sure that what you're doing is working and is landing.
Yeah, direction's a good term for it, because you are kind of like steering a vessel that is the production a little bit, and like every time you get a new piece of information, your view gets a little clearer. You might make a little adjustment here or there to make sure that you can get to that goal. And in terms of like what is us, what is like Kevin, Teddy, Rob, one of the nice things about this production in terms of the creative side of things is it is very collaborative. Like I've been very thankful that like Kevin, he's the lead writer as well as an executive producer, but like I don't think there's ever been a moment when he wasn't willing to listen to an idea that we had. Like and Rob and Teddy not only like listen to our ideas, but also have loads of amazing ideas as well. And so it really is like we would get on these calls and just like, let's brainstorm, let's see what we can figure out. And so I'm very thankful that they like not only came to us with good ideas, but also were willing to work with us to create some other ones. And like I think the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, it's kind of like inspired creativity, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I love, you were talking about Tila and Subternia fighting FOR He-Man. And, there is this blink or you'll miss it moment, a brilliant moment to me where Tila is battling, her doppelganger in Subternia, FOR Tila. And in that Masterverse of the Universe episode, Land of the Dead, I think. And number 4. And during this moment, FOR Tila like raises her blade to Tila's face. And just for a brief second, you can see like the reflection, the red eyes of FOR Tila's face reflect, on the face of the blade and perfectly line up with real Tila's face. And you can miss it, but if you don't miss it, it's magnificent. And as a fan, it's these little touches that just makes me go bonkers for your work, because it feels like these beautiful touches didn't have to be there, but I so appreciate that they are.
I'd say they had to be there. That was our thought going into it. There was no like, screw it. It was like, no, we want this to land. We want this to be like a really impactful moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't enough just to make like, an updated, HD remake, of He-Man. We wanted to make it something unique and special, and something cinematic. It's bingeable. You can watch it like a movie, but we directed it like it was a movie.
Yeah.
Oh yes. a lot of times we would go through animatics and stuff and just pull that camera back, adjust a shot, and be like, and just try to get that kind of like movie cinema feel out of everything.
Oh, and look, talk about going the extra mile. And I'm gonna, we keep mentioning Star Trek, so I'll preface this with Star Trek, and you probably guys know where you're going. I'm a Star Trek fan, but if I was a huge fan, I would learn Klingon. Okay. and Patrick.
Uh-huh.
And I'm gonna need some extra help after school with you with what you created. But what many people might not know, unless you actually picked up the art book, is Patrick created a full functional language during Masters of the Universe Revelation called Kudakesh.
Okay, so that has been announced. Like we can say Kudakesh.
Yes.
Someone said that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was actually in the book. It was listed as Kudakesh.
Cool. All right.
And it said it was an ancient language created by Kudak Ungol to like unite Old Eternia or something.
That was always my. I don't know if like that counts as official canon or not. That was like my head canon for it, like when I was working on it, because we had that character Kuduk in Revelation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's
here, I have the page here in the art book. It's page 148. You can see it there.
There you go.
There it is.
And I love it. And you could write it, but you could also speak it, because you had consonants and you had vowels and you had some sample words.
It's got working syntax. It's got adjectives, verb, adverbs, determiners. They all have a place that they land in. It's got etymology on a few words. Things like affirmation and negation have etymology. It's got it's a phonetic script. It's got a whole. It works. It's a working language. It's not like just a code, right? Like sometimes you'll have a code where it's like you have a script, but you just write English in the script. Or you'll just like replace certain words with other words, but like the syntax is the same as English and all that. But yeah, this one, like Klingon, like Sindarin or Quenya, is going to be. It actually has a functioning system.
But the only thing is, I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't use it like what you use. I saw the phrases like it was the goat must die or something like that, and I was trying to teach myself, and I just couldn't do it. So, I don't know if you ever have some free time to either teach me and then I could teach the world. I'd make a video of it or just put it online to teach us all. I mean, because I don't know, there's some of us fans like really going deep.
I mean, I'd be excited. I'd have to talk to a few people about that. Okay. But yeah, it was a really fun language to put together. There's a lot of the whole reason it looked like H's, right? The concept for that was that like He-Man symbol, it's kind of like Superman symbol, was like a little bit in my head. So like that there's something to go along with that, where it's not like an H, it actually means something. Figuring out like the names for certain things. Like I'll give you like a sneak peek on one of them, which is the word dual-con. So dual-con means of man-make. Or rather, con is a suffix that means of man-make. Dual-con means to make. It's like a verb. So to make is dual-con, which obviously comes from Duncan, man-at-arms. And so like there's a reason that like a lot of the words are double syllables and that they have different origins, and like they went through the phonology and like got tweaked a little bit. But like then you get that suffix con for of man-make, and then ko, coming from Orko, means of magic make. So something like blood would be of magic make, but something like, like a machine, like a car, would be of man make. So there's like, you start getting into the whole affix system, and it gets really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's written in season 1, and then it was so awesome to hear actors speak it. in Revolution. That was really exciting for me.
We need to, like, didn't they have like a Klingon dictionary? I think that was published.
There is a lexicon. I have a lexicon that I wrote for it, so I could give it to the actors.
I don't know if you could like get that out one way or another. That would be fantastic, because I think
if enough people are interested in it, like, I'd love to have that conversation.
I think there would be, and I could just see the future, 10 years from now, people having conversations.
People are gonna like show up to me at cons and Havakma Maria Torres, and I'll be like,
and then it'd be like, look at this marvelous thing that you created, and yeah. So hopefully you can make that happen, because
language creation is fun. More people should do it. It's a fun little pastime.
And again, that lends to the extra mile you guys just go, and it's there for the people who want to go that deep and look for it, it isn't necessary learning, but it is. And you guys put some I think of some names. I think it was in Subternia, right? It was like Ted Biaselli's name in Kudakesh, and so little Easter eggs. So there's Teddy, Rob, and Kevin, or Kevon, I think it's Kevon, are all words in Kudakesh. That's awesome. Oh, and speaking of sticking people's names in there, you guys are cartoon characters.
Oh, yes.
I mean, is that, I'm not familiar with, I have a big problem that I don't spread myself out to other brands than the hobbies I'm deeply entrenched in. And maybe it's because I have the FOR ETERNIA website, podcasts, all this stuff. I just don't have time, but I have not yet deeply explored into Castlevania, which I want to, because and I know that was Powerhouse Animation's first animated series. There's some great history to that. But so I guess long story short, is this new for Masters of the Universe Revolution, putting employees in, as animation models, or has that been going on in Castlevania as well?
I mean, like, it's certainly a really fun thing to do. Yeah. I mean, like, all of these shows, they require what we call incidental designs, which are just basically background character designs. And the goal of these is just kind of to fill out a scene, populate it, but they're not really meant to, draw attention or anything. But sometimes, to add a little bit of extra variety, the designers will decide to, instead of just drawing a generic person, they'll kind of find somebody to model it after. Sometimes it's a friend, family member, coworker, and at least in our case, it ended up with Kevin, Teddy, Rob, and I think Pat and I both got
in there.
Designs.
Brad, Shane are in there. There's a couple of incidentals that are based off of other people, like Stage, and I think Jungha might be in there. And there's a couple of our like viz dev people. The key with incidentals, though, is that like you don't want to overdo it with that, because a lot of us have unique looks, and so like you have to make sure that when you're filling a scene with incidentals, that you communicate to your outsourced partner, like, all right, use it here, and then don't use it again, because if you're not careful, you'll start finding yourself popping up everywhere, and you're like, that's a problem.
Yeah. I want to know, you call them incidentals?
Correct, yeah.
Are the Preternian heroes on an animation model sheet, right? They're called Preternian heroes. Were they incidentals?
I mean, talking about in Preternia, that's right. The other people around the fireplace, or the bonfire.
Were any of them like Powerhouse employees, or
none of that bunch? Because all the Powerhouse people are still alive.
Yeah.
Well, everyone in Preternia was meant to be, kind of like a champion. They needed to be ripped. And no bodybuilders at Powerhouse just yet.
Maybe we could have used Jose.
Although, if animation burned calories, we'd have a lot of He-Man.
Well, there's got to be something to always be sitting at a desk. I gotta imagine, you guys must encourage, like you said, taking breaks, right? Playing video games, getting up, doing some exercise, stretching the legs.
That's maybe like, yeah, take a break, and then everyone's like, I'm going to take a break from sitting down looking at a screen to go sit down on a comfier chair and look at a bigger screen. Like, all right.
Yeah. Well, as my mom would always say when I leave the door, make smart choices, but we don't always make smart choices, But you guys were talking real quick about that, the flashing of, or no, Patrick, you were talking about like your favorite battle was the Hordak battle because it kept flashing flashbacks, right, to Keldor when he's being trained by Hordak. But I got to ask real quick, and I was just wondering where this moment came from, and I'm betting it was in the script, but perhaps you can confirm it for me, because it was a brief moment in episode 3, Dogs of War, in Masters of the Universe Revolution, where Skeletor is about to kill Hordak, run him through with that technological, magical, transformative blade. And, Hordak says, I should have left you to die on that filthy island, Keldor. And when he says that, you see the face of Keldor's father, King Nero. And when Skeletor responds, my name is Skeletor, we see Keldor and young Keldor flicker in and out of his face. And that moment was so brilliant. It was so Shakespearean, So do you recall where that came from? Was that in the script? Was that someone Powerhouse suggesting it? I don't know. It was brilliant. Whoever did that.
We really wanted to have this kind of visual motif to kind of show like Skeletor's, fractured mental state. Because from the second he gets that initial injury from Motherboard, that's when he starts seeing Keldor. That's what opened up, those neural pathways again. And he's kind of going through his own little identity crisis in that episode until he finally, culminates and reasserts who he is, at his core. He's not Keldor, he's Skeletor. And so leading up to that moment, we just wanted to get the, Keldor hallucinations. They start popping up more and more often. They start, he has that semi-fugue state where Keldor kind of warps him over to Grayskull.
Yeah.
And right before, he reaches that culmination, he's just kind of experiencing all the traumas that have led him to this moment, Miro sending him away, Hordak betraying him. Like, it just felt necessary to let the energy of that moment really match the, the story importance of what's happening to his character.
It was so brilliant too. Hey, quick question about Keldor. During the production of Masters of the Universe Revelation, did you gentlemen have an inkling at all that Skeletor, he said in one of those episodes, that he was an interdimensional demon in Masters of the Universe Revelation. Did you ever get an inkling that he was Keldor from that point, back in, I guess, when were you working on that? 2020, 2019? Meaning, did you know that it was in the cards the whole time that Skeletor would have this Keldor origin if you were lucky enough to continue the story?
I think that those type of decisions are a little bit above me and Akon's pay grade. So
Rob, Kevin, and Teddy were all a little bit coy about Skeletor's origins when we asked, but we did ask about Keldor, and we did know how important Keldor is to the fandom, but we did not know for sure whether he would be showing up until we got those scripts for Revolution.
There was I was never a fan. I mean, I never hated Keldor, and I have nothing but love for the fans that loved Keldor. But you had people raised on two different shows. The Filmation show, there was just a demon from the Dimension Infintia, I believe, and the actual mini comic that gave you that possible Keldor origin, because it was never conclusive, came out after that 1983 to 1985 Filmation series, and so that was later explored in that 2002 series. So you had like the Hatfields and McCoys. You had two people in different camps. Some people loved their Skeletor as a demon, and loved the otherworldly feel to it, that he was coming to this dimension because he knew this is where the power was. And then you have the people who love the whole family dynamic, and they never really got along. But I think this series really successfully blended and merged the two origins successfully so well. And
you just had to have Skeletor's character be played by Luke Skywalker and Captain Kirk. That's all you had to do.
I guess so. I guess so. Well, I love the fact that he wasn't, in the original, he wasn't lying, right? So he was really convinced he was a demon. So it plays both origins very well. That it doesn't, what's the word? And it doesn't dismiss either origin. It respects them, I guess. And it was really a nice blending. And I thought, you guys really, and I know hats off to the writers on that one, that you guys really did a nice merging of the two. And I was just really pleased with that. So
yeah, like I know that was definitely a priority for the writers, and it was a priority for us, just as directors, just making sure that we could marry those two backstories into our season. But it was a tightrope.
Yeah, something we had to keep an eye on the whole production for sure. Make sure that we were delivering on that.
So when you guys got the green light for Masters of the Universe Revolution, you got the green light to do it again, which the cat almost came out of the bag with Mark Hamill. I remember. You guys remember that? Mark Hamill, I think, went to Twitter. I think it was still Twitter at the time. It was like, I'm filming Skeletor, and no one had announced Masters of the Universe Revolution yet. And it was so funny. But I mean, it's Luke Skywalker. How do you get angry? Spilling the beans. But this time out, in regards to your approach, did you guys have any different approach? Any changes the whole creative team set out to make or improve or learned from the last time?
I mean, as I mentioned before, making a second season of any show is going to be a little bit easier. And, we didn't have to redesign, we knew what He-Man looked like at the beginning of our show. So now that that's out of the way, we could really focus on more of the fun parts of production, figuring out how all of these moving story pieces are going to throw together. But I remember we had a pretty early meeting during like the first week with all of our supervisors, where we just did a bunch of story arch, where we're kind of just taking moments and beats from the script, from the outline, and just kind of getting first ideas out. What are the core, essential linchpin moments of the series, and how can we make those be as sensational, as possible? And I know, for me at least, one of the ones that we knew we wanted to go big on was the episode 5 transformation between He-Man and Teela. I think it might have been Abby who did the initial kind of thumbnail for their transformation, which is not only solving the story problems they're going through right now, but also the culmination of this 40-year love history that's been teased. And I would say from start to finish, that Hinshin shot, that Sailor Moon-esque transformation, we planned that pretty early on. We knew that's what we wanted to go big on, but from start to finish, I think that was probably the longest shot, just from conception to execution.
Yeah, we got animation started on that so ahead of time compared to the other stuff.
Yeah, it was very early. It went through multiple different hands at various stages of production. Dominic Farrow was a very heavy lifter of the animation for that one, alongside a team of cleanup artists, in-betweeners, admin people doing the exports so it could all be composited. There's a lot of moving parts in just that one shot, but it sure does look great.
It does. That's one of those things you put on your promotional reels. Is it a show reel? I don't know.
Definitely.
So I know we're getting close to wrap it up. What's one of the things? The Easter eggs. I wanted to, regarding Easter eggs, I couldn't help but notice Gwildor's 1959 pink Cadillac.
Oh, yes. Good eye.
Yeah, outside his home, which is an amazing nod to the 1987 Masters of the Universe film, which continues a great string of Easter eggs between Revelation and Revolution and that 87 movie. But not just those Easter eggs, but how does those Easter eggs work? Is it just handled by you and Powerhouse? Is it a team effort? We want to get this in and that in. I mean, how does that come?
I mean, it's definitely a team effort, we're all big He-Man fans, like at this point, and so we're always looking for opportunities to work in, side props and character cameos and appearances. The three towers, Teddy, Kevin, and Rob, like they were, Teddy especially sent me so many references, artifacts, Easter eggs, like, oh, this could be in there, like that could be in there. But also just, our supervisors are so incredible and dedicated and talented that, they did a lot of independent research. Like, ooh, could we get this thing from this episode in there? And it's like, it was a team effort for sure. And with a franchise as storied as this one, 40 years worth of material to go after, there's no shortage of Easter eggs for us to insert as needed.
They're so fun. And, eventually I sit down, I did that with Revelation and started sat close to the screen. And then, all right, let me see if I could find, I haven't done that yet with Revolution. I did find
a favorite Easter egg from Revelation.
I think it's another, it's another an 87 movie Easter egg. And that's when, let me see, it was the episode 2 when,
the Tila tracker.
Tila, but Tila's wearing that Road Ripper mask, which is from that vehicle. And then she's using the tracker that Man at Arms used in that in the 87 film. And there's a close-up of that tracker. But really, seriously, even people have seen that movie. How many people really know what that looked like? And how many people, I mean, again, this is like deep in the weeds. This is like treasures for fans that really go deep in the weeds and really go look for it. Probably the majority don't even notice, but I love that you put that stuff there for the ones that, really enjoy that. Like, oh, I know what that is, And I think that was I couldn't believe to see that.
I'm glad you noticed the Road Ripper mask. That was, I wasn't sure if people were going to get that one.
Yeah, that was so cool. And it was such a good looking look on her, I was wondering if we were going to get Stinkor back, but we didn't. Speaking of Stinkor, this is not really real quick. Do you guys have any finished deleted scenes? I know you had what's her name, Ailina.
Alina.
Yeah, from Tila's friend. We knew Kevin Smith's daughter voiced the part. Kevin Smith talked all about it, and then I believe, and we've seen the animation model sheets for her. So, but I always assume this is always cut before it's finished. Do you actually have that rare scene that was actually finished and then cut? Completed?
Well, animation's a pretty efficient medium. We try to only do the things that are going to wind up in the final product, just because so many man hours go into even simple and easy shots. And so it's very, very rare that a scene will get so far along and then later just to decide to be axed completely. So we have like small, subtle permutations that, scripts have gone through where, it was written, they were standing on this side of the room, but then we moved it to the other side of the room because it has the window and they need to look out at. Small blocking things like that happen fairly regularly. But, the core script, especially in Revolution, with it being as, tight and, action-filled and movie-like, there wasn't a lot of fat to trim. So pretty much everything made it to the screen.
That's what I figured. Yeah. I'm hoping I actually heard, all right, you guys can absolutely be quiet on this because I'm not sure what you can talk about and I don't want to get you in trouble, but I heard through the grapevine that another art book was being worked on it. So can you guys, and I don't want to get you in trouble, so I don't know, can you confirm, deny, or say you would be involved or no?
If that's in discussion, that's again like something that like me and Akon, it's far above our pay grade.
Okay.
We don't make those kind of decisions. It'd be cool if I could, though.
Yeah. And let me see. And I don't mean to put you guys on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. You guys you have 2 children now. You have Masters of the Universe Revelation. and you have Masters of the Universe Revolution. And I know I'm not supposed to ask which is your favorite child, but now that they're both born, they're both grown up, you know, do you guys have a personal? It doesn't mean you don't love them both, because I love them both, you know. But do you guys have a personal favorite? You know, each of you.
Oh, I mean, it is really hard to choose. There are definitely like specific moments throughout both seasons that I'm just really, really happy with. That,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
I look
hard
back
to beat
really,
the transformation sequence in Revolution, but at the same time, like I love the Evil Lyn arc in Revelation a lot, especially with like that giant phoenix at the end.
Yeah,
that's so good.
It's magic line.
Yeah,
I think that was composited by Steven Swirsky, another fantastic artist that we were privileged to work with, and just made these gorgeous, you know, visual effects and color work for it. So that one really stands out to me. I'm also a big fan of when Orko confronts Scareglow in the first season.
Yeah,
that whole scene gave me goosebumps.
Still does.
But I mean, like, there's also so much goodness in the second season. Like, you know, I really love how we ramped up the Saturday morningness, you know, of those things. I love the flashing H in the second episode of Revolution, where we're kind of cutting between He-Man jumping off the balcony, calling down the power midair.
Also, such good like character interactions. Like the character interactions in Revelation are great because you have Orko and Gwildor get to have like a lot of moments together. You have, of course, Keldor, Skeletor. Like but at the same time, you also have like I love Orko and Lyn in Revelation. So yeah, it is really hard because I don't think you can kind of have one without the other.
Yes.
Right? Like Revelation really does kind of inform Revolution. Like Revolution you can watch on your own, but like it's another thing to watch Revelation and then go into Revolution because it sets up so much in terms of like character relationships and things like that.
I kind of equated it to, and I don't know if this is the best example, but like Alien and then Aliens, if you've ever seen that movie. You know, they're both like two different, you come away with two different vibes, but they you know, but they're both so good, you know.
Yeah.
And you can't have Aliens without Alien. You could watch it without it, but they both exist. And
yeah,
you know.
that's a good analogy.
All right, so then if you can't pick favorites, do you have a favorite? You know, I can't. All right, I'll tell you what. All right, I'll tell you what. We'll turn the question. Did you ever get tired of confusing Revelation and Revolution? You ever go to like the Teddy and go, guys? You know, because I find myself like, you know, it's just in conversation, like twisting those all the time. I'm like, wait, you're talking about Revelation? No, I'm talking about Revolution. But, you know, you don't catch yourself. And, you know, Kevin Smith came out publicly, the San Diego Comic-Con, and said everyone's going to be able to figure out what the third, if they're able to do a third one, that the third one is called. You know, so people immediately started going into the names like Redemption, you know, anything with an RE in it, you know. Or Retribution or what have you. Actually, Redemption is very fitting with
like the Matrix trilogy. All of a sudden,
it's very fitting with the Spar She-Ra. So that's you know, as we finish this out, what a it's not a post credit, it's a pre-credit teaser, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
We'll coda at the end.
Yeah, if the Spar is showing and at the end, when you saw, I guess that was Hordak being repaired, right? And then it looked like they were analyzing He-Man's armor. It looked like there were these like little pinpoints to, I guess, trying to determine what this new, you know, merging of magic and technology.
Exactly. Well, I mean, like me personally, I will settle for the third season being called Masters of the Universe Renewed. I just want another season.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I am also very curious to see who's under that mask.
Yes. Yeah, all the fans are very familiar with the whole landscape and the rights issues and stuff like that. So we really hope, one, that it not only happens, but two, they can make everything work out contractually, where it could be He-Man's twin sister, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But we definitely want a third installment, and I know you can't speak of what you know, what you don't know, what the chances are of a third one might be. But if it does happen, do you both want to come back to Eternia one more time and direct the third and final?
If the fans will have me, I will eagerly be here.
Well, I think, the fans love you now, I mean, I loved you since the beginning, but, there was that, and I got nothing but love for everyone, by the way, and some people didn't, I understand, don't like everything, but it looks like everyone's on board now, and everyone wants that third season. So hopefully it just shows up ratings wise, hopefully Netflix sees it worthy to continue one more time, to get the band together one more time. So
if you're watching it on Netflix, make sure to give it those 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
That's always appreciated.
Yep. And help the industry, if you guys like animation, just support.
Don't be quiet about it. Be very vocal about how much you love animation.
Yeah, and watch the shows and give them 2 thumbs up. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff from Powerhouse. You guys did that King Kong one, right?
That's right. Skull Island. Directed by Willis Bulliner, who we also worked with on Seis Manos. He directed that as well. Fantastic director. You should all go check him out.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And then, and I'm such a fan. You guys are doing Lara Croft.
Yes, we are.
I can't wait to see that too. So there's a lot of good content, and I really, most people don't go have a Masters of the Universe website that's occupying all their time with forums and podcasts and videos and news stories. So they have the free time. So don't be like me and miss these shows. Use your free time, watch these shows, support these shows, and of course, keep watching Masters of the Universe Revolution. I think it counts. I think rewatching it again, it just helps. I mean, there's no guarantees, but it's the best way to do your part. To bring Akon and Patrick back one more time.
Just have it playing on repeat in the background. Every time you leave the house, you need something for your pets to watch. Pets love Motu.
I wonder how the algorithm would react to that. Like, this person's
idea.
Surely can't hurt.
Yeah, you're right. It can't hurt. So, all right. So I think I ran long, but I think we ran the gamut, my friends. Now, do you either one of you have anything else you'd like to touch upon or add, or something perhaps we haven't addressed yet?
I mean, there's so much that we could talk about. Like, we didn't even talk about Granomir.
Oh,
I was trying. The great John Delancey is a huge dragon, and we were able to give him his helmet and everything, and have him fight a giant techno titan in the sky.
Can you guys see my Granomir up here?
Oh, you've got the classic toy. Very nice.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Granomir. John Irwin was
horns.
John Irwin was the voice of Granomir, and who played the He-Man in the original Filmation series. And I had no idea that he could just contort his voice that way. Couldn't even recognize him. And he was, and seeing Granomir, it was fantastic. And having John, you had the whole Star Trek crew.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you had
if we can get Jonathan Frakes,
Gates McFadden as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because Dr. Beverly Crusher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, and if you can't say, was there a scheduling conflict with our original Marlena at all? And
Silverstone?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. All above our pay grade.
So same thing, I guess, with Tila. So, because I actually like both performances, but I did like.
Yeah, I mean, like I can't pick a favorite. Like,
me neither.
Sarah Michelle Gellar was incredible. Like, Melissa was amazing. Brought so much like heart to like the vocal performance, which we really needed. This season, just for her storyline. But I mean, they're both amazing.
Yeah. And you know, I don't know about you guys, but I was a big fan of Batman the Animated Series, and when I first listened to Mark Hamill, in Masters of the Universe Revelation, there'd be points certain times that I just like hear the Joker. But now I don't know if that's just sort of faded away. But in Revolution, I didn't even hear the Joker at all. This is Skeletor, you know,
and I don't that kind of like Tallulah quality every now and then. Which is really great.
And he's just so brilliant, and
he's fantastic to work with. I mean, they're all again fantastic to work with, but like I just remember the first time seeing Mark Hamill come into the booth, and for someone of his like stature, you know, like of his notoriety, to come into the booth and be so like just great work ethic, just down to earth, just like what do you guys need for this moment, was, I don't know, just really good. It showed to me that like voice acting really is like a passion for him, and like as a fellow craftsman, I really appreciate it when someone comes in and treats it to with that much respect.
And Lena, oh my god,
yeah. She's so fun to work with.
Does she not also elevate the material? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure there's
you could have asked for a better Evelyn.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some actresses that could have done a fine job, right? And we've been very happy with her. But Lena, you know, it's kind of like Bear's score, right? It lifts already good material that much higher, because Lena is doing the voice. And I feel, especially as a Masters of the Universe fan, but I'm sure you as creators, to have her doing that, it just raises it a notch. You know, she brings this gravitas that not many other actresses can bring. And she does humor. It's great. She does. She does like
I can't like rave about the voice talent enough. I mean, you've got Mark Hamill, right? You got the Joker, Luke Skywalker, like rounding out with Skeletor. You've got like William Shatner, who like brings this Shakespearean quality to Keldor. You've got like the perfect Evelyn in Lena Headey. You've got like Liam Cunningham as like a wonderful man-at-arms. Orko, whose like voice isn't even pitched. He's so like amazing as Orko, and brings Griffin's this kind
so
of like
great at Orko.
Yeah, it's like this like little kid brother energy to like this character, made people like really fall in love with him. You've got Stephen Root, who brings so much heart to Cringer, and then also is able to pivot and be Battle Cat with that confidence in his voice. Like it's, and like even like Granomir, like having John Delancey being kind of dismissive of Tila, and like dripping with that disdain in his voice, while also making it kind of fun and rhythmic, was fantastic. Like, yeah, the voice cast, like through and through, couldn't have asked for a better cast of characters. It's amazing.
I just wish we could have had a big, I know it would have been expensive, but a big Comic-Con moment where you have the whole voice cast on stage. You guys know like what they did with the Avengers, right? I think in one of the Comic-Cons, they had the whole star-studded cast, and I'm sure it would have been so expensive. And you guys are trying to keep costs down to a minimum already, you know, and or Netflix's, because I guess that would be Netflix flying everybody out there. But still, just to see them all together, but it is a dream just to have these, because you know it's. There's an explanation that sometimes comes with being a Masters of the Universe fan, you know, because as Patrick, you were talking about the book and how much lore in there. A lot of people just think He-Man, Skeletor toys, and there's not a lot of depth. But if you watch, if then you show them Masters of the Universe Revelation, especially the first one, you know, there is so much human drama and death, especially in those later episodes with the character arc that Evelyn endures. That is just so, and the gravitas that Lena Headey brings is just so adult, so compelling. You know, like it's just like the death of God scene, and you know, and
it's a wonderful like character who's kind of like Evelyn's whole thing. Like even though she's got evil in her name, there's just kind of like, is she fully evil now? Is she not? She's kind of like going back and forth between these. But I really do love that, like in Revolution, that like for Skeletor, it's like him actualizing himself and like realizing who he is. It's like, no, he's Skeletor. That's his arc. It's like, no, I am an evil son of a bitch, and you will deal with me.
Yeah. I'm hoping we get a figure now that says Goodlin,
Oh yeah.
as Granamir calls her Goodlin, and Griffin Newman did say he didn't reveal which figures, and I'm happy he didn't. He was able to go to Mattel and see the upcoming. He only collects, Revolution figures, and he got to see the upcoming figures, and he was like, "Those are magnificent," And obviously he couldn't reveal what, but I'm hoping we get like the Tri-Sorceress, and I'm hoping, and this new version of He-Man and Hordak, obviously, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, and and Keith David. Whew.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about
Keith David.
Keith David. Jeez, like one of my favorite toys, like growing up, was like this Gargoyles Goliath figurine that had like foldable, action wings, and then just to be in a booth with Keith David, reading Hordak's line, and just nails it with every take. It was an out of body experience.
And you had him do the snort.
Yes.
Which I gotta imagine. I could see. I don't know if this is true, but Keith would be like, "You want me to snort?"
We do have moments like those in the booth that are really fun, where it's like I'm talking to this like amazing AAA actor, and I'm like, "All right, give us like 3 snorts."
Please don't hate me.
Oh, it's like that with William Shatner, right? Like we got to tell William Shatner to give us a nya.
You guys saw that great story where Kevin Smith was talking about trying to direct. Maybe you guys saw it. San Diego Comic-Con. Kevin Smith was saying like, he was trying to direct William Shatner, and William Shatner is like, "Kevin, I got this."
I mean, proof's in the pudding. Like you listen to his delivery in the show, and it's you can't not listen to it. Like it just grabs you.
Yeah.
Like I was very curious to see, how the character of Keldor was going to come together with Shatner's voice, but I feel like I never truly understood who Keldor was until Shatner gave those lines, and just it all clicked into place perfectly. We're like, this is such a great take on Keldor. He brings such a charisma, for lack of a better word, to the performance. It's great.
Yeah.
Ted Biaselli mentioned that the way William Shatner would work is he would read the entire script. So, and you guys have a recording of him like just reading everyone's lines, not just Keldor, but Evelyn and everybody. And I'm like, I need that, like, the old books.
You need the Shatner cut where it's just like characters.
Or just, an audio, I'm saying audio CD like they make CDs anymore, but,
if they ever do a physical release with like a director commentary, we can also have like a William Shatner audio track where it's just him giving the whole performance.
And people would eat that up. And I would love something like that, but unfortunately it seems like, physical media, they just don't. They don't. If they do release it, you don't get all the bells and whistles anymore. Like, there was that sweet spot. Maybe it was early 90s, was it, where they were making like special edition upon special edition, late 90s.
Those huge Blu-rays,
yeah, where there would be steel books and tons of commentaries and 5 new documentaries, and they just don't seem to see there's a demand in that and spend the money on that anymore.
I bet you there's still a demand for it. I mean, you're demanding it.
Yeah, I'm demanding it, but I don't know. For some reason, there's no. It looks like studios aren't spending the money on that. Even with the Marvel stuff, where you figured, there would be a lot. The releases, the Blu-ray releases, the 4K started becoming more bare bones than the initial ones in the MCU. So I'm not sure what happened, but it's a shame, really, because the behind the scenes stuff, I mean, this this is the gravy, right? We all love that, you know. I mean, you guys must love that on different content you love, you know, to find out workings, you know, of how something is made, and
that's what got a lot of us into working in this industry was
Yeah.
behind the scenes stuff. Like, you know, as a kid having those Star Wars concept art books and watching the behind the scenes footage of like how they made those things. It's interesting. It makes you want to play in that world because you see what you get to do and how fun it can be.
Yeah. Well, they just announced a new Masters of the Universe 1987 Blu-ray, and it's got what did they say? I don't want to be wrong. Somewhere between 45 minutes and 3 hours of new, never before seen like documentaries. So I'm excited about this. That you know, it's like the Shout Factory. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Shout Factory. They put out special editions of older films and all these new documentaries and found footage and stuff. And there's one coming from, not by Shout Factory, but there's one coming from Masters of the Universe, the 1987 film. So I was like, boop, pre-order.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I actually sent that to Ted Biaselli. And I was like, look, because I know he's a big fan. Order this. And some other people, and so I'm so excited. So, but I don't know, anything else you guys want to add? I know I'm running really late. That's why I said 90 minutes, I think. So we're already 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Oh man.
So do you guys have anything else you want to address before we sign off at all?
No, I mean, I think that pretty well covers it for at least this first batch.
All right.
Everyone hit those double likes on Netflix. Let's get that Masters of the Universe renewed title. Let's figure out what the better title is going to be.
And I'm serious about that Kudakesh, Patrick. So whatever you could do, teach us, man. We'll sign up. We'll pay a fee. I could get 30 guys to
learn Kudakesh. I'd be very interested in talking more Kudakesh.
Okay, well maybe we can make that happen at some point. So great. So it's been such an honor to have you both on today.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure.
Been a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, and thanks to you, and I like how you mentioned this. Anytime you could, the rest of your creative team. You know, our fandom has been graced with something truly special twice that I'm so personally thankful for. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you both for pouring your heart and your soul into these, you know, 2 animated series. It shows, and we're, you know, the fandom is extremely grateful. So appreciate that.
Thanks. It's been a real honor, you know, working on this show. Like this, it means so much to so many people. It was such a formative impact on a lot of, you know, their childhoods. And that's something that is, you know, worth nurturing and worth respecting. And so we just want to bring the best possible show to the fans that we can.
Well said. All right, gentlemen, that's a wrap all. We want to thank Akon and Patrick for being on today. Thank you both. You've both been a absolute delight. And thanks to you all out there for listening to this podcast. Now, if you enjoyed the show, please show your support by subscribing to our streams and our channel. And please give us a like and a comment below where able. And you can always drop us a line too by sending us an email at foreternia@gmail.com. We really do love the feedback. And as always, visit us at foreternia.com for all the latest updates and news, as well as links to our social media pages like X, Facebook, and Instagram that can help you stay up to date with all our Masters of the Universe content. So that's it. We would like to thank you all for listening, and let the power return. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone. Bye, guys.